Hey guys, I'm Brad Polumbo. This is Hannah Cox. Welcome back to Libertarians React. We're the co-founders of Base Politics, and today we're reacting to the one and only Matt Walsh.
This is going to be really hot take-ish. I think we're going to have very strong reactions to much of what he has to say. If you don't know Matt Walsh, he's a blogger, Christian conservative, extreme traditionalist who really likes to push his way of thinking on other people. That's something we don't really stand for as libertarians, so we're going to work through some of his clips and break them down. Let us know your thoughts. Make sure to leave your comments as well.
All right, so in this first clip, he endorses arranged marriages. Let's take a listen.
Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum are arranged marriages. Instead of a boundless, never-ending buffet of options, a young person in a culture that practices arranged marriages will be assigned just one, and they don't even make the choice. Their families just pair them up and say, here you go. There's far less freedom and far less autonomy in a system of that sort, but it is without a doubt superior to our system. We would be happier. Every person in the dating scene right now would be happier if they were just matched up with someone against their will.
Don't think so. Against their will? That's a new dating app, right? Be matched with somebody against your will. Here you go. You're assigned this person. Go make babies. What the heck is wrong with
I don't know.
them?
How is it conservative to be like, yeah, it would have a lot less freedom and individual rights, but it'd be better. That's not what conservatism in America has ever been about.
How bad is your marriage is what I want to know. That you think people should just be like, assign people like a lottery system, like here you go, and that would be just as good as whatever you found.
It's a little rapey, to be honest. The vibes of like, yeah, women should be assigned to me as my wife. No, they should not, sir. Mm-hmm. They should not.
This seems like it comes from a very incel kind of mindset of like, I can't get women on my own. They never pick me, and so they should assign me. I know, but he speaks for that crowd.
I guess. But the other thing too about this is so much of what he does starts with like a little grain of truth and then takes it to this insane extreme. He has a point that he makes particularly earlier in this video clip about how there's like this appearance of endless options that doesn't actually exist. And I've experienced this with my friends where they have Tinder, and so they're constantly swiping, and it seems like there's an infinite pool of potential partners. And so they swipe left, looking for perfection because they have this idea that there's just unlimited people out there. And he talks about that, and like, that's a real thing. And people are, I think, too choosy or too stubborn with online dating in ways that they wouldn't be in real life. Things are deal breakers on online, or I would never date a blonde person, or, oh, that person's a Republican, swipe left. Like, there is a problem with that mentality. Yet he takes that little grain of truth and it's like, so that's why we need to go back to forcibly putting people in marriages against their will. It's like, no, thank you, sir. No.
No. One time my dad tried to set me up with somebody and I was aghast at who he thought I would like. I was actually insulted. I was like, Dad, you know I'm cute, right? Like, you know, like I don't have a problem pulling men, right? Like, no, absolutely
But at least that was
not.
a suggestion. It wasn't a...
It was just what he would like me to be with, which was like this super Christian guy who was in his church and who like was slightly balding, but like he thought it was a good option for me. So he was like a really good guy. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna need a really good guy who's not balding. Like, and also who doesn't live in Anderson, South Carolina, because I'm for sure as hell not. And like, you know, those kinds of things. So all I'm saying is I love my parents dearly, but I would never want them to pick my mate. They would have no clue how to begin to pick who I would actually want. So,
yeah, no, it's just creepy. And it's really crazy, and I just can't relate to that one at all. But maybe we'll get luckier with the second clip. Maybe that'll be a little bit more something that we can vibe with. Let's check it out.
So the title is Anxiety is Not a Mental Illness, and I already hate him so much because, listen, I grew up really Christian conservative. This is a very pervasive view in the church and in these circles. Let's just
hear him out. Maybe he's got lots of science and facts and logic to back up this take. Let's hear him out.
One of the worst things to happen in modern times is the medicalization of the human condition. Now people who experience anxiety think they're sick. They aren't. Anxiety is a fundamental fact of human existence. It is not a disease. That's what I wrote. That's what I believe. We have set out to medicalize and diseaseify every aspect of the human condition, every difficult emotion, every unpleasant personality trait. That's why the DSM now has something like 300 mental disorders listed, and over 50 million adults in this country have been diagnosed with at least one of them.
Which one of those applies to trolls who say outlandish things for attention?
Right. I hate this.
Yeah,
You hate this too, I'm sure.
I do. I'm very bothered by it, but it's also just like very objectively wrong because he does this. He also, it's not just anxiety. He also says this about depression. Let's read. He's got a tweet about depression. He says, "No, I don't believe that depression is a mental illness. Despair is not a medical condition. Neither is anxiety, anger, fear, etc. All of these experiences are natural and universal to the human condition." So what he's basically saying, guys, is that because anxiety is an emotion that everyone feels sometimes, or sadness is, therefore clinical anxiety disorders and clinical depression don't exist and aren't medical conditions, but are simply just experiences of normal human emotions. But that's just objectively wrong. It's literally, depression is a chemical imbalance in the brain that you can observe in someone. You can look at the brain scan of somebody who's clinically depressed for someone else and see the difference. It is not the same as just feeling sad sometimes. And it's so harmful when so many people lose their lives to these conditions and die by suicide, to be
or
just
drug addiction.
out here on this hill with this completely medically uninformed and unscientific take that's just, I guess, honestly, just for attention.
It's extremely harmful. It is, like I said, it's pervasive in many circles of Christianity and trad, right? And I find it really harmful because it is something that prevents people from getting treatment, from getting help. And I will say, I want to clarify that anxiety and depression can be normal human experiences if you are experiencing situational anxiety or depression, and that can be a small blip that you have to work through, say, and that is not a medical condition, right? You're not having an imbalance, you're having a rational reaction to an event. Somebody dies in your life, you're sad, you fall into depression. That is situational depression, and while you can still get help for that and should, especially things like therapy, I would not say that's a medical condition, right? Same thing with anxiety. Like if you're having anxiety because you're really stressed and you have a deadline, you don't know if you're gonna make it, like it's normal to have anxiety there. But then there are actual medical conditions, which are things like generalized anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, and there's many orders underneath those that you can look up in the DSM.
Yeah.
But basically, they are things like you and I have. I have a generalized anxiety disorder, and what that means is that I have anxiety responses that are not normal given the situation, the circumstances.
You're not just feeling anxious.
I'm not just feeling anxious. I'm not responding to a rational event. I am making things up in my head and overreacting to them and fixating on them oftentimes to a point where if I had not received medical treatment throughout my life, I might fall into things like addiction. I might fall into other harmful behaviors to escape it. I might overreact to situations in ways that could be harmful, and often these things can lead to suicide. And so to say that these are not medical conditions is extremely harmful. It's not based on anything at all. I almost think it's like something that could make you liable if somebody in your audience is listening to some of this. Like, good grief! Like, I would feel
it's definitely borderline, right?
Yeah.
And I'll just get personal for a second, right? It's like I, at many times in my life, experienced anxiety or sadness. But then when I was in college, the end of my second year, I started having panic attacks where I literally thought I was having a heart attack and couldn't breathe.
I've had them. They're brutal.
And that is not normal. And then, I had this spiral of mental health issues that I was able to correct through therapy and medication. But it took months to find the right medication balance, to fix what was going on with me, and everything. It took almost a full year to really resolve. And so there were months where every single day I had thoughts about killing myself. Every single day. That is not normal. That is, and all it took finally to fix it was a medication that worked and corrected this imbalance in my brain. And then it went away. It hasn't been back. And it's like, for him to spew this kind of thing and potentially push someone to thinking that what they're experiencing is not something they need to seek treatment for, it's just something they can cope with, it's just normal human emotions, or maybe they just need to pray a little harder or something. It's more than ignorant. It's really harmful. And I wish he could see that. I wish that somebody in his life could sit him down and talk to him and tell him that this isn't just an example of like a bad take. This is actually one of those areas where spewing these kinds of takes can be really harmful.
I agree. And unfortunately for people like this, it often takes them losing somebody in that kind of situation, or at least experiencing it firsthand, to truly understand the depths of despair that some people are in thanks to these mental illnesses. And this is why it makes me so angry, because I experienced with this growing up where I was told, like, you just need to pray harder. It's a spiritual issue that you're having. You have anxiety because you're not right with God. Like, this is something where you shouldn't feel this way because you're a Christian. Like, all of those are really damaging, harmful, anti-Christian sentiments to express. They're not scientifically based. They're really ignorant and uneducated, and we've got to nip this in the bud in our society.
While we're talking about his Christian takes, though, guess what the Matt Walsh hottest take of all is? It is about yoga. So the first time that Matt Walsh ever went mega viral, at least that I'm aware of, is when he said it's kind of, he labeled yoga as pagan and demonic. He tweeted, "It's kind of amazing to see all the Christians who think nothing of going to a yoga class. There are many excellent ways to get in shape that do not involve participating in Hindu worship." Then he wrote a full article about this, calling it a pagan ritual. And then he did a long video about it this is the suffering I do to prepare for this show and this podcast. I watched a 40-minute Facebook video from 2018 of Matt Walsh talking about how yoga leaves you susceptible to being possessed by the devil. So I'm just going to throw this to you for your reaction as, you know, a follower of Jesus. What do you think of this whole take?
Got a lot to say about this. I think first and foremost, as a Christian, if you're really worried about the demonic effects of yoga, you've got your priorities in the wrong space, because there's a lot of demonic things in our society, a lot of things that are really actually hurting people. And this is what you're going to spend 40 minutes talking about with your large platform on Facebook. Sir, you need to get right with God. Something's off there, real off. First and foremost, I think you need Jesus. Number two, the idea that he thinks yoga is a pagan ritual, like, this is kind of hilarious to me, because it says that he's not somebody who's ever actually gone and experienced yoga. So to be clear, I am a very devout yogi. I do yogi practices like 3-4 times a week. I love it. It's something that helps me keep mentally sane.
Have you ever been possessed by a demon or the devil?
Not yet, but sounds like a good time, maybe. It sounds like maybe I could get into some better poses. I mean, can you imagine how, like, flexible I'd be if I had a demon?
Now I'm imagining Matt Walsh getting flexible and opening himself up to the devil. No.
But what's funny about this is, like, in America, when you go to a yoga class, you can go to a Hindu yoga class and have a very different experience than what I experience when I go to a hot yoga sculpt class, where, like, there is nothing Hindu about my practice. And in fact, I personally believe there's no reason you can't make any yoga practice your own spiritual religion. Like, if I'm there and I'm trying to concentrate on a higher power and I'm trying to think about being grateful, for me, that is a religious practice that I rope into Christianity, and that I think you can use your body to worship God. And I think taking care of your body is a sense of a worshipful act and showing respect to what God gave you. So I think he's totally off base on this in really ridiculous ways. But again, more importantly, I don't know how, as a Christian, this is what your focal point is on in our world. There's so much desperation and sadness around us, and, like, this is what you're worried about?
I think the real issue is yoga. Yeah, don't get me started on Halloween. All right, guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, like this video, comment, let us know what you think of Matt Walsh, or on the podcast, email us. We've got an email and the link in the description. Let us know who you want us to react to next. We actually did this Matt Walsh one because somebody in the comments on YouTube asked us to, so we will listen if you have a good idea.